Hello once again, everybody. Thank you for joining me in the Bettor Box. This is BangTheBook.com's MLB betting podcast for Thursday, June 6th. I'm your host, Adam Burke. This and every edition of the Bettor's Box presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Monday, Thursday format here with the Bettor's Box, as you know. Coming up after the weekend, a new Monday mailbag comes your way at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at bangthebook.com via email if you want to submit your questions for the Monday mailbag, and also Adam at bangthebook.com if you want to sign up for the notes for the Bettor's Box editions here. I talk about a lot of stuff, usually a lot of statistics, a lot of numbers. So in your best interest to sign up for the mailing list, where you'll get copies of the notes that I use here for the show. My daily MLB picks and tips piece updated, of course, for June 6th here. We do that on a daily basis over at the website. NBA game previews and series thoughts from Admir Algic for the Raptors and Warriors in the NBA Finals. Parker Michaels still going here with the Stanley Cup playoffs. Series tied 2-2, Game 5 tonight. You want to be on the lookout for his preview coming up here later on today. Yesterday, on Wednesday, I recorded a Belmont Stakes podcast with horse racing expert Brian Blessing. So we talked about the 10 horses in the field for that. We talked a little bit about the Acorn Stakes at the end as well. Make sure you check out the podcast, his video over on our Bang the Book YouTube page, and also my two written previews for the Belmont Stakes and the Acorn Stakes here coming up this weekend in the Empire State. And then on Friday, we'll have Christian Pina from the Sports Gambling Podcast with us to break down the UFC card for this weekend. Next week, Bettor's Box Monday. We're going to talk some college football with Brad Powers on Tuesday. We'll talk U.S. Open with Brian Blessing on Wednesday. Bettor's Box Thursday. UFC Friday. Jam-packed week every day next week here on Bang the Book Radio. So make sure that you keep your ears open for all of that content. As far as today's show, very traditional format here. We'll go beyond the box score. Take a look down the lines. I'll give you a pick for tonight's action. Then I'll preview 5 series here for the weekend ahead. So let's go ahead and dive in with a look beyond the box score. And let's start with that series between the Phillies and the Padres. The Phillies take 2 out of 3 in this one, but they do lose Andrew McCutchen in the process. Big loss for them, 378 on base percentage at the top of that Phillies order. And you know, one of the things I've talked about a lot here with the Phillies this season, their walk rate and the importance of how they've been able to manufacture base runners and rallies by drawing walks. Well, they lose one of their key walk guys here in McCutchen. We'll see how that affects them going forward. Cesar Hernandez now at the top of the order. Gene Segura got flipped with Bryce Harper, so he's now batting third. We'll see if that stays going forward for Gabe Kapler and the Phillies. They did pick up Jay Bruce, a guy that does walk a lot, hits a lot of fly balls, good power bat, not much in the outfield. So, you know, we'll see if he's able to get to enough fly balls there. Does have a decent arm, just doesn't get to a whole lot of stuff in the field. So we'll see what happens here with the Phillies. They were a regression candidate in my mind going into this series. They had overachieved on the pitching side and also a little bit on the offensive side. Now they lose a big offensive piece in McCutchen. What happens with them as they go forward? This is kind of a wait-and-see thing, but I can tell you, as I've talked about before here on the show, because the quant crowd and the modeling crowd has so much influence on this betting market, we've seen a lot of these position player injuries not accurately accounted for by the odds makers. So we could end up seeing some line moves against the Phillies here this weekend. We'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. But sucks for McCutchen, who's having a phenomenal season. Great signing for the Phillies. Hopefully he comes back no worse for wear here next season, and he was able to give them some surplus value with what remains on that contract. Now, as far as the Padres, you know, their bullpen kind of regressing here a little bit, a 5.24 ERA over the last 30 days. Now, there has been some bad luck in there. They do have a 397 FIP, 385 xFIP, but this was something that worried me about the Padres. They're a top-heavy bullpen. Kirby Yates has been excellent. Craig Stammen up until yesterday had been very, very good. Adam Warren has had his moments. Trey Wingenter's had his moments. But ultimately, this is a bullpen that doesn't have a ton of depth. So as those key guys get a little bit fatigued, We haven't seen it yet with Yates, but we're starting to see it a little bit with Stamen and some of the other guys. You kind of worry a little bit about this team. And this is one of my concerns in general with the Padres. And I've talked about a lot of cautionary tales with them over the last few shows here. They're not a deep team. They don't have a great bench. And they've got a lot of young starting pitchers that they're going to have to protect as the season goes along. We saw them protect Chris Paddock a little bit a few starts ago. He wound up getting scratched with a little bit of a neck issue. His last couple of starts have been a struggle. You wonder if teams are figuring him out, if the shallowness of his arsenal is coming to the forefront, or if it's simply a fatigue issue or maybe an injury issue with some of that neck discomfort lingering a little bit for him, neck or back, whatever it was. Matt Strom's already on the DL. For Paddock here, they were going to take it easy with him anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if he struggles in his next start, if they put him on the IL in place of Strom, activate him, try to protect some of these guys in that young rotation. But it's very important for the Padres to pitch well because offensively, they're just not a very good ball club. They hit for a little bit of power. They do not hit basically any breaking ball that anybody throws. So they need this pitching staff to be good. Some chinks in the armor right now with that pitching staff. And again, still have my sights set on fading this team in the second half of this season. Quick little 2-game sweep from the Nationals over the White Sox. And I know people are going to say, well, it's the White Sox. Look, I get that. But the Nationals here have won 9 of 11. They've rattled off 4 in a row. They're quietly up to 28-33. And yes, they still have a lot of bullpen issues. But the offense is swinging it really well with Trey Turner back now, with Anthony Rendon fully back from the injury that sidelined him earlier. He had a little bit of an adjustment period getting back to the big leagues, wasn't fully himself. He's swinging it again. And you still have Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin at the top of this rotation. Anibal Sanchez with a decent effort yesterday. This Nationals team, I mean, look, if they could finish off the late innings of games, they'd be pretty dangerous. So we'll see if they're able to sustain that here going forward. Big road trip out west for them now. At least some positive feelings going out west with that Trey Turner walk-off dinger in yesterday's game. But the Nationals quietly stalking the pace here in the NL East, having won 9 of 11. Still 5 games under 500. You still have to get over that hump first. And, with Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin, shouldn't be too long before they get there. So the Nationals really playing well right now. Of course, the concern is that they're not an overly trustworthy team. And because of the star power that they have, particularly in that starting rotation, you get a lot of big numbers on them in a lot of their games. But I'll talk more about them here later in the show as they take on the San Diego Padres here this weekend. For the White Sox here, they're having some offensive difficulties again. And this is a team I think is very fortunate to be sitting there at 29-32. They do have talent. They do have what I believe is an overachiever right now in Lucas Giolito, who's been pitching very well, but his last 7 starts have largely come against tomato cans. We'll see what happens as he gets some starts against some better teams. But I don't think much of Rick Renteria. I don't think he's a very good manager. Quite frankly, I think he's kind of an idiot. The bullpen management has been poor. Tim Anderson is still batting 7th, and I have no idea why. Eloy Jimenez, 226 average, 279 on base, 387 slugging, hitting in front of Tim Anderson, by the way. I think this is a team in line for some regression. I don't think that Giolito's as good as he's been. I don't think this rotation is very good. The bullpen is suspect, and the offense will go through lulls because the White Sox don't really draw a whole lot of walks. And that's the things that don't draw a lot of walks. They'll hit for a little bit because batted balls will find holes. They'll hit some home runs, stuff like that. But the way that you remain consistent, the way that you stay a good offensive team is by drawing walks. It's not a coincidence that of the top 10 offensive teams in Major League Baseball this year, I bet you 7 of them have a 9.5% or higher walk rate, probably even 9.8% or higher, because it's important to get those free base runners, create rallies, put pressure on the opposition, even if you're not going to hit your way on base. So that's the problem that I'm seeing for the White Sox here. We'll see if their regression does hit. I certainly think it's a possibility, especially in the summer months here where better offenses are going to go into guaranteed rate field, knock their pitching staff around. So I think the White Sox are a bit of a regression candidate here in the near future. How about the Miami Marlins? We got to break up the Marlins, man. I thought, like I talked about last Thursday, I thought it was in good shape with their season win total 10-31 in their first 41 games to start the year. I think they're 13-5 or so here over their last 18 games, playing very, very well. They scored 24 runs in the first two games against the Milwaukee Brewers, had an 11-run fifth inning in the first game. And, I watched the highlights of that inning. Those weren't all bad pitches for the Brewers. A lot of batted ball luck. Guys were reaching, kind of spraying balls all over the field. Then they wind up scoring 8 runs in the next game, including the Brian Anderson grand slam. Look, this is a team that scored 68 runs in the month of April. Well, March and April, I guess I would say. No, it was actually just 68 runs in the month of April. They scored 24 runs in 2 games here in this series. But again, this sort of speaks to what I was talking about when I was doing the exit velocity updates, that you're going to see positive and negative regression from these teams, no matter how bad they are. And for the Marlins here, because they've been doing so well offensively of late, they've had some of that positive regression on hard contact. And much like the White Sox, the Marlins don't walk a whole lot. They've been shut out 10 times here this season in their 59 games, but they've scored over 4 runs per game in the other 49. So, again, it's one of those things where if you don't walk, you're going to be an inconsistent offense. The Marlins don't walk. They don't have a very high talent level to begin with, but they're getting it done right now, and obviously everyone's just kind of doing the next man up thing. When you look at the Brewers here, there is some dead weight on this pitching staff. Williams, Burns, some of the other guys that they have, they don't get the job done. And you want to look for these opportunities from a live betting standpoint. Live bet the over when Williams comes in, when Burns comes in. These are guys that just give up a lot of runs and do so in the middle innings. So you'll have plenty of time for those overs to come through. This is the thing with a lot of teams that have pretty good bullpens, though. And I've mentioned this angle before. If they're trailing in a game, it's probably going to get worse because they're going to save those primary relievers for when they need them in those high leverage situations. The weaker guys will pitch in lower leverage, like a Burns, like a Williams. And then you wind up seeing these scenarios where, a deficit becomes a multi-run deficit in the blink of an eye. And that's happened a lot here for the Brewers of late. Offensively for Milwaukee, too. They're moving Lorenzo Cain around the order. They're trying to get him going. Ben Gamble's hit leadoff a few times here this year. They bumped Cain down to third. Just trying to figure something out. He was so good for them last year. And this year, just not the same success on batted balls, not the same success in the on-base percentage department. They got to figure something out with him. And I don't quite know what that's going to be. Once he gets going, it will elevate an already pretty good offense. But also for the Brewers here, Keston Hiura going down. Goes down because Travis Shaw comes off the IL. And you want to give a veteran player a chance. You want to show some confidence in him. It kind of means something to some of the older guys in the clubhouse. It hasn't worked so far with Travis Shaw. And this will be a very temporary thing where Shaw is likely to get DFA'd. Hero will come back up. He'll be back in the order. He was doing a lot of good things for this Brewers offense when he got sent down. Would expect the same thing when he comes back up. But right now the Brewers making some suspect decisions. And we haven't seen that a whole lot from the Brewers here in the David Stearns era. So I imagine things will get back to normal sooner rather than later. But for right now, Milwaukee, kind of a tough team to gauge at this point in time. How about the Indians? They take the first 2 from the Minnesota Twins, showing a lot of sack in this series. That's good to see because they haven't shown a lot of it here so far this season. The Carlos Carrasco thing, obviously a tremendous disappointment, and everybody in Cleveland and everybody around the baseball world hoping the best for him with that blood condition. Big start tonight for Trevor Bauer. We'll see how they finish up this series. He has not been good of late. I profile all that over in my article at bangthebook.com today. They need him tonight. This is a must-win type of game for the Indians. They can get 3 games on the Twins in this series as opposed to 1 with a victory tonight. It's a very important game early on in the season here. But, you look at Devin Smeltzer, and I was on the Twins on Tuesday night. I thought Smeltzer was a pretty bad matchup for the Indians lineup, and quite frankly, 2 times through the order, he was. The Indians were 2 for 14 the first 2 times through the order off Smeltzer with a walk, a home run, or a single, a home run, and 2 walks. Third time through the order, they hit 3 home runs. So I think it's kind of a learning a learning curve situation for Rocco Baldelli. Too late pulling the trigger. I think he should have gone to the pen after the Lindor home run. He did wind up getting through the middle of the order, but then gave up a couple of home runs to the bottom of the order. You got to be proactive. Too many managers here are reactive. And I understand that player feelings come into the equation and all that bullshit. But you know what? It's about winning games. You know how teams are happy? When they win games. You've got a kid making his second or third career Major League start. You go out there and you tell him, you know what? Thank you for your contributions. We're going to go to the bullpen here. They should have did that earlier with Smeltzer in that game. Could have gotten out of there down 3-2. Instead, they're down 5-2. Kind of puts the game away at that point in time. Not enough managers are proactive. And again, maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm not in the dugout. I don't have to look these guys in the eyes, tell them I'm taking them out of the game. But, you know, when you've got a guy like that who was struggling to find the plate, was starting to hang some breaking balls, threw a cock shot fastball to Lindor that he hit out of the ballpark, you've got to be proactive there. So for Baldelli, maybe a learning curve thing, maybe a fat and happy kind of moment, but I thought the Twins could have been a little bit more proactive there. And who knows, maybe would have wound up winning that game if it was a 3-2 affair late in the late innings. But Shane Bieber pitched really well and pitched around hard contact all season long. Didn't give up a lot of hard contact in this game. Gave up the 2 home runs. That was about it. Pitched really, really well. Then the Indians with that gritty bullpen game on Wednesday. You know, Jordan Luplow in the middle of this order against lefties. They look different against lefties now. Smeltzer and Perez, the 2 starters the last 2 days, getting after them. Lindor's coming around. He's getting hot. He can carry a team emotionally and physically. The question is if Jose Ramirez will ever get hot, will ever follow suit. I don't know, but I sure hope so for his sake and for the Indians' sake as well. Now, one thing I will say, even if the Indians do finish off the sweep tonight, this is the right kind of scenario for overreactions. The Twins, you know, had the best record in baseball coming into this series. The Indians have been the torchbearer in this division the last couple of years. There may be some overreactions here to this series. People saying, well, you know, the Indians, they got the offense going. They'll get Clevenger back soon, you know, so on and so forth. Oh, yeah, the Twins couldn't sustain this pace. They're a young team, haven't been there, haven't done that, all that type of thing. I guess will be a big series for overreactions. The Twins do get the Tigers here coming up this weekend. Chance for them to get healthy right away. The Indians, of course, get the Yankees this weekend. So we'll see how they wind up playing that. But I think this will be a scenario in which, maybe not this weekend because we've seen a lot of money against the Tigers here of late. I think this could be a scenario where people really overreact to this 3-game sample of the Indians playing with their backs against the wall, essentially, and the Twins playing with that big margin for error with that large division lead. I want to talk about the effect of the opener here and its effect on handicapping. And what's been really interesting is credit to Chris, bookmaker and the like, and then also Circa Sports out in Las Vegas, just throwing up any pitcher or throwing up opener on these lines. I really like that they're doing that. An opener is not going to change the dynamic of the line all that much because everybody's still focusing on the bulk reliever. And that's what you want to do from a handicapping standpoint with these opener matchups. Look at the bulk relievers. And let's look at a couple of stats here I think are very important. The second plate appearance against a relief pitcher. Now, more often than not, this is going to mean, at least in 2019, an opener. You will have multi-inning relievers who do wind up facing guys the second time. But for the second plate appearance against a relief pitcher, batters are hitting .277 with a .345 on base and a .484 slugging percentage. If we go to the third plate appearance against a reliever, this is obviously an opener situation here. They're batting .296 with a .364 on base and a .496 slugging percentage. So what does this mean? The reason why teams put an opener in front of a guy is because that guy's not very good. They try to extend these guys into the game a little bit by not having them face the top of the order for a third time. That's the concept behind the opener. But as you can see here, these bulk relievers are not very good pitchers. So the second time and the third time through the order, they're getting raked over the coals. This is a very important thing to keep in mind from a handicapping standpoint here. How many times have we seen an opener pitch well and the bulk reliever comes out and gets rocked? We saw it with Felix Pena yesterday in the game between the A's and the Angels, We've seen it a lot of times over. The Rays, their bulk relievers tend to do very well. A lot of other teams, that hasn't been the case. So keep that in mind with your handicap that by and large, these bulk relievers are not very good pitchers, which is why they're using the opener concept anyway. And if these managers want to push these guys through the order for a third time, it has not worked out. We're talking about an almost 500 slugging percentage against a reliever with a third plate appearance. So that's a very important thing. The opener has kind of turned baseball on its head, has kind of really changed the dynamics of more of bookmaking than betting on these games. But that's an important factor that you want to consider here, is that a lot of these bulk relievers just aren't very good. They're just not very good. So don't be afraid to bet those overs, to bet the other side, things of that sort, because these bulk relievers have had a lot of problems turning over a lineup a second and third time, which, again, ironically enough, is what the function of the opener is supposed to prevent them from doing. Also, the first inning now ranks 6th in run scoring by inning, 3rd, 6th, 8th, 7th, and 4th. And then the first inning, as I mentioned, I believe dating back to 2009, I want to say, the first inning had been the highest scoring inning. Now it ranks 6th. Still lots of problems for the middle relievers and the setup guys in the 6th, 7th, and 8th there, where the 6th is the second highest scoring inning, the 8th is 3rd, the 7th is 4th. Now I want to talk a little bit about park factor and talk about OPS plus, which is a metric over at baseballreference.com. OPS plus, basically weighted runs created plus, graded on that scale where 100 equals average. Anything above that is above average. Anything below that is, of course, below average. So if we look at player OPS relative to the park factor. So basically, if you say 100 is the player's regular OPS, when they go to a different ballpark, what is their collective OPS plus? And this is on a ballpark basis. So Coors Field, of course, the highest with a 131 OPS plus. So what that means is that, as a rule, hitters are 31% better at Coors Field than they are at your average ballpark. Baltimore, 112. Texas, 111. Atlanta, 111. White Sox, 109. Pittsburgh, 109. Very interesting note here. PNC Park playing to a 448 slugging percentage, formerly a pitcher's park. Lefties posting an 865 OPS. The Pirates, left-handed hitters, posting an 830 OPS at home. That 865 OPS for lefties at PNC Park trails only Monterrey, Mexico, highest elevation that's been played at this season. Right-handed batters at the Tokyo Dome, only played 2 games there. And then left-handed batters at Coors Field. So lefties are having a plethora of success at PNC Park this year. Traditionally one of the best pitchers' parks in baseball, not this year at all. So we definitely have to make some adjustments here to PNC Park, and in particular, when lineups full of left-handed batters get there. Success down in the Steel City so far this year. Angels Stadium, 108. So hitters are averaging 8% better than a league average park at Angels Stadium. Not used to seeing that at all. The wall has been lowered in right field. Of course, Mike Trout, part of the equation here as well, but still very interesting, very eye-opening stat there. And then Philadelphia, Citizens Bank Park, 107, so 7% better than the average park. Miami at 78. Now, of course, keep in mind that a lot of this is predicated as well on the home team. If you're a good offense at home, you're going to run these numbers up a little bit. If you're a bad offense at home, these numbers are going to be lower. Like Miami at 78, San Francisco at 80, San Diego at 87, Oakland at 88. The A's have not hit it all this season. Neither have opposing teams. So that's something you want to factor into your handicapping, looking at some unders and things of that sort out there. And again, 3 ballparks on the West Coast in the bottom 4 here in terms of this TOPS plus park factor. How about Yankee Stadium? 10% lower than your league average park. Left-handed batters only batting .228 with a .294 on base and a .392 slugging percentage at Yankee Stadium this season with that short porch. That's amazing to me. That is a horrible slash line for left-handed batters at Yankee Stadium. Yankees lefties, by the way, and there aren't many of them, with a 705 OPS at home this season. Tropicana Field and Chase Field, 92. So those are your best ballparks, at least it would seem, for betting unders here this season. Obviously, the totals are adjusted to these parks, but for right now, those are some parks where offense just really hasn't been easy to come by. Minus 180 or higher favorites. They are feasting once again. 120 and 52 on the season, 69.8%. $100 bettors up almost $1,000. They're up $980 using the closing lines at 5 dimes on these favorites of minus 180 or higher for the season. Also bigger favorites, meaning overs, as the over is 163 and 8, 61.3%, with a favorite of minus 180 or higher. And here is the stat for you, folks. Definitely make sure you listen to this one. Minus 180 or higher favorites are 75 and 24 since May 1st, with an average line of minus 220. This is a dramatic change from the month of April. Again, 75 and 24 since May 1st. They were 45 and 28 in March and April, 75 and 24 since then. So favorites are now doing what they're supposed to be doing. And again, this has been a positive trend the last 4 years of big money line favorites covering at a very high rate. It's happening again now in May, and I would expect this to hover somewhere around 71 or 72% when all is said and done here for the season. So if you're a big favorite player, if you like to parlay the big favorites, this is the time of year because they are gaining ground rapidly relative to the previous 4 seasons and also, of course, relative to the standings as well. 75 and 24 since the start of May for minus 180 or higher favorites. Again, they were 45 and 28 in the months of March and April. So that is a dramatic change here over the last 5 or 6 weeks. All right, let's go through the down the line segment here. Take a look at some line moves dating back to Tuesday. Very, very big move on Max Fried and the Braves against Steven Brault and the Pirates. Easy winner for Braves backers there. I believe Max Fried is now 10-1 on first 5 lines here for this season. So the Braves southpaw has been very, very good. We saw some yo-yo line movement in the Giants and Mets game on Tuesday. Early Giants money. Then we saw the Mets buyback. Noah Syndergaard is an ex-Wilbur regression candidate, but he has not had any command this season. That was a 3-3 game going into the 10th. We were on the Mets in that one with the article over at bangthebook.com. Then the Mets gave up 6 runs. So that one went by the wayside. But some interesting line movement with initial movement on Bumgarner, the buyback on Noah Syndergaard. We've seen a lot of that here this season as well. A lot of line movers with some buyback as we get closer to first pitch. So money come in against Luis Castillo and the Reds. That was Genesis Cabrera and the Cardinals on Tuesday. I do agree. I do believe Luis Castillo is a fade candidate, but it didn't work out here. Glad I wound up staying off that one. On Tuesday, we also saw Eduardo Rodriguez take some money against the Royals. The Royals actually hitting righties pretty well this year, struggling quite a bit with lefties. He struggled early in this game, but the offense bailed him out, got to the window there as one of those aforementioned big favorites in the $2 range. But Eduardo Rodriguez, a guy taking on a lot of money here of late as well. Wednesday, we saw a little bit of Kevin Gausman and Braves money come in against Joe Musgrove and the Pirates. Musgrove with an impressive usage change, threw his curveball a lot more. It was a good pitch for him, sequenced well, located well. A guy I think we should be backing here in his next few starts. He already had some signs of positive regression from the statistical profile. Now with a usage change, I think that elevates him a little bit. So I do like him as we go forward here. Saw some Jason Vargas money hit the board for the Mets against the Giants and Tyler Beede. Jason Vargas, complete game shutout in that one. Amazing. He averaged like 83.5 miles per hour on the fastball through a complete game shutout. Looks like people agree with me that the Mets are a positive regression candidate, especially on offense, especially as they get healthier here. Citi Field has not been the pitcher's park we're used to seeing either. So keep that in mind, especially with this Mets offense as it warms up a little bit in Queens. So some money on German Marquez early, then the late buyback on Yu Darvish. The Cubs did wind up eking out a victory in that one. But once again, lots of early moves on one side, buyback on the other side. It's been the story of this Major League Baseball season. That was not a line move in yesterday's Twins-Indians game. So if you're looking at your odds screen, seeing the opener, seeing where it closed, that's Carrasco got scratched. The Indians did win that bullpen game that was started by Tyler Clippard. Continued fade of the Detroit Tigers against the Tampa Bay Rays. We've seen that all week here. Probably see it again here this weekend with Twins money coming in against the Tigers, depending on how big those lines are. But nobody wants to back the Tigers right now. Terrible lineup, right-handed heavy. Miggy is basically done at this point. The bullpen's in line for regression. It's an ugly state of affairs up there in Motown. Finally, on Wednesday, we also saw fade of Dylan Covey in the White Sox. That was to back Anibal Sanchez and the Nationals in that day game there. Thursday, we saw some Mike Fulton-Evich money come in on the Braves against Chris Archer and the Pirates. That game already going on here. A little bit of a late start to recording the Bettor's Box today. That's not really a big surprise because Archer is he's fallen out of favor in the market, as I mentioned on last Thursday's show and on Monday's show, I believe. And thing here today on Thursday. So the Brewers line dropping quite a bit. Caleb Smith against Freddie Peralta there in that one. Not a big surprise. A lot of people do like Caleb Smith out there in the marketplace. We saw some early Trevor Bauer money, now getting some Jose Barrios buyback on the Twins. We'll see where that line eventually ends up settling. I have no idea what happens in that game tonight, but I'm certainly rooting for my Indians to come through there. Pick for tonight's action is the over between the Astros and the Mariners. I guess it's an afternoon game here. I apologize for the short turnaround. Had some issues with recording here today. But, Justin Verlander is a regression candidate. Very low BABIP, very high 95% left on base percentage this season. He is in line for some regression. As far as a play for tonight, not a whole lot that I love on the card. I had a couple of early totals on today's card. So, I'll give you some thoughts here. For the weekend, as we preview 5 series, give you a little bit of an indication as to what I'm looking at here. Let's start with this series between the Nationals and the Padres that I mentioned already. Nationals are hot, 9 of 11, 4 in a row. Happy flight out west. We'll see if they can sustain that here in this series. You got Patrick Corbin, Joey Lucchesi tonight, Eric Fetty, Nick Margevicius tomorrow, Max Scherzer, Eric Lauer on Saturday, Steven Strasburg, Chris Paddock on Sunday. This could be a very good spot for the Nationals. They're already playing well, and they face 3 left-handed starters in this series. Washington is in the top 5 in batting average, on-base percentage, slugging, and WOBA, weighted on base average, against left-handed pitchers, and they do get 3 of them here in this series. Is Chris Paddock regressing? Is it the injury? Is it teams adjusting to a little bit of a shallow arsenal? I don't know, but that could be a tough spot for the kid on Sunday as well. Also, Scherzer and Strasburg here Saturday, Sunday against the Padres. Corbin tonight. I like the National Series price here. It is a little bit chalky. Usually in these 4-game series, most sports books only grade based on the first 3 games. So we don't get that Strasburg-Paddock game. But with the Nationals facing 3 lefties, I think this is a good spot for them to keep this train rolling. Yes, the Padres do have the better bullpen, at least from a primary reliever standpoint. But I still think that the Nationals, who are hitting now, should carry that out to the West Coast. So do like the National Series price a little bit this weekend. Yankees and the Indians. Domingo Germán, Zach Plesac Friday. CC Sabathia, Adam Plutko Saturday. Masahiro Tanaka, Shane Bieber on Sunday. Indians shuffling their rotation up a little bit. The hope here is that they only need a 5th starter once before Mike Clevenger returns. They have 2 off days next week. Plutko would be that 5th starter here on Saturday. How do the Indians follow up that Twins series? If it's a sweep, do they keep the momentum going? If it's not, and they only gained 1 game, is there a little bit of a lost opportunity hangover in this series against the Yankees? The Indians will throw 3 righties at the right-handed heavy Yankees, but 2 guys in Plutko and Bieber that allow a lot of hard contact. So this could be a series potentially with some runs here if the Indians can get their bats going. The Indians will, of course, honor CC Sabathia on Saturday. Started his career with the Indians, drafted by the Indians out of high school. He's on this retirement tour now, so we'll see how that affects him. Maybe they'll do it on Friday before the game, but we'll see how that affects him here, making what will be his last start at Progressive Field for his career. Reds and the Phillies. The Phillies off of a West Coast swing, and a decent one at that, with the exception of that McCutchen injury. Tyler Mahle, Zach Eflin on Friday. Tanner Roark, Nick Pivetta Saturday. Sonny Gray, Aaron Nola on Sunday. All righties here in this series. The Reds are limiting home runs better than any team in baseball other than the Rays and Cubs. The Phillies score with walks, score with the long ball. The Reds aren't issuing a lot of walks, aren't giving up a lot of home runs. Could this be a lower scoring series here? I think it could, especially with that Phillies lineup in a little bit of a state of flux without McCutchen at the top. The Braves and Marlins. Can anybody slow down this Marlins train? We'll find out. Mike Soroka, Jose Urena on Friday, Julio Teheran, Trevor Richards Saturday, Max Fried, Pablo Lopez on Sunday. Soroka, a little bit of a regression candidate. We'll see if we get that Urena money on Friday. I think we'll see under money on Sunday for that Max Fried and Pablo Lopez matchup. We'll see what happens here in this one if the Marlins do get slowed down because they have not played well for the most part against NL East opponents. Finally, one more serious look at here, the Cardinals and the Cubs. Miles Mikolas, Cole Hamels in a day game on Friday, Jack Flaherty, John Lester in a night game on Saturday, then Adam Wainwright, Kyle Hendricks on Sunday Night Baseball. We'll look to fade John Lester again on Saturday against a very right-handed heavy Cardinals lineup. Cardinals lineup that does not have good batter versus pitcher stats against John Lester. So somebody's going to talk about that, even though it doesn't matter whatsoever, because the current state of John Lester, much different than the past state of John Lester. Someone's going to use that to justify a play or an under or something like that. I'll just be looking to fade Lester because he's allowed a lot of hard contact this year, and he's in line for regression. The Cardinals do, however, struggle immediately following Cubs games. They're in Miami on Monday. They'll take on Sandy Alcantara. That could be a spot where I'll circle the Marlins. May have what I believe maybe my second ticket of the year on the Marlins there in that one. The Cubs, meanwhile, go out to Colorado. They'll face Herman Marquez again on Monday. So lots to consider here for this weekend. Lots to consider over the next several weeks as well. A lot of baseball coming your way over the next 6 weeks. The schedule very condensed with the All-Star break in mid-July. So a lot of teams are going to be playing a lot. Pay attention to those lineups. Managers are going to try and sneak days off for guys, try to sneak extra days of rest for their starting pitchers as well. So a lot of things to keep in consideration here as we go forward. As I mentioned, we'll talk UFC with Christian Pina on Friday's edition of Bang the Book Radio. Next week, every day. Bettor's Box Monday, Brad Powers and some college football Tuesday, U.S. Open with Brian Blessing on Wednesday, Bettor's Box Thursday, UFC Friday. Full dance card for you on Bang the Book Radio as we head on into next week. I'll do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And remember that you'll never strike out when you're in the Bettor's Box.